Hey guys, I just wanted to talk about some of the stuff that I've learnt from role swapping, becoming a jungler instead of a top laner, and mostly solo queue so far. It's just been over the off season. I will say I haven't played any competitive games yet, or played more than like 10 or 15 scrims, so I don't have like the full insight into what it's to be like a competitive jungler. But there's a bunch of things that I've learned across this journey, and I think you guys could learn from it too. And so I think one of the I faced a couple personal pitfalls at the start. Um, I lost a lot since I was getting like fresh back into the game after the off season, so my account was doomed. And I had a lot of like champion learning to do because there are a bunch of champions that are jungle specific that I don't play so much of as a top laner. So there was like a large gap in like the requisite skill that I needed to perform at like even like a baseline challenger level as a jungler. So that's a lot of learning I had to do. But then apart from that, I've learned a lot about like the perspective of what it is to be a jungler, especially in this region. Um, One of the big things that has been very apparent to me as a jungler is that player skill, there's super big differences in player skill in this region. You go jungle in Korea and like the lanes are fairly even. Lanes will win, lanes will lose. But here, if there's like, say one team has Calvin Trong and the other team has like some random D1 ADC, no matter the matchup, no matter what you set them up for, like no matter how much gold you give them, they will just play worse. And so it's very obvious that the games are split not because of drafts and champion select, but because of the players that are in certain roles. And so you very much end up having to play the player rather than being able to play the champions that are in the game. And it leads you to do some very suboptimal things. Um, because you basically are incentivized to be selfish in this region. It feels like when you do things that should be like net gains for your team and you try and win matchups for your players and try and affect the map, a lot of the times, if the player gap is too big, which it quite often is, it just doesn't mean anything. And it's very easy to just, look at the highest ranked player in your team and play towards them because they're the only one that can really like treat your lead like they're a human being. So it's like I have to personally try and not play to that somewhat in like the to learn, I have to try and think about champions and where I should be playing, but to win, I should be playing around the players that I know can carry the game and will carry the game. Even when they're in matchups they shouldn't be able to carry the game from, even when they're playing champions in a game they shouldn't be able to carry, they just will. The player skill gap is so big. But apart from that, I've had to do a lot of internal reflection as to like what I thought was easy because throughout the years I've like taken problem with some things that my junglers have done, and I've thought this is really like a big noob trap. This is not good. And so like one of the first ones was like I was microing my camps too much. Like you don't need to effectively be able to clear like 1 second faster. It doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, 1 second is most of the time completely irrelevant. And so instead of like stutter stepping a bit better and like making sure that your clear is slightly more optimal, using all of that extra APM on just checking your lanes and understanding the map state is so much more valuable. And that's something that I would always try and like beat into the mind of my junglers, but then as soon as I played the role, I found myself doing the exact same thing, and I'm like, oh no, this is kind of bad. And so it's like, yeah, I just have to go through it, and like there's a lot of baseline things that you have to think about as a jungler, like oftentimes I find it a bit hard to focus. I'm a bit in like I don't like focus so much for like the 1 minute 50 of the game. As like a top laner you don't have to, but as a jungler, if you don't look at like where you're placing your wards level 1, where they're leashing from, where they walk, like it's kind of cooked. It's really hard to play the game. So like when I was climbing, like one of the things I would have to like note to turn my brain on and look to see where the enemy champions walk from at the start of the game to make sure I knew where their jungler started. Like the focus was just not there for some reason. So I think that one of the things that I learned is I have to be a lot more for things that I haven't built habits on. Because as a top laner, I have a lot of habits into how I play the game, and they're for the most part good. Some of them are bad, but like I have a lot of habits that make me a good top laner. But as a jungler, I have to build a lot of these up from scratch, and so it's made me very conscious of like the baseline habits I have as a player and like what things I need to improve on and focus on to make sure that I'm a good player and what's important to like winning the game. So I think that's something you guys could take like a lot of note from is that you should pay attention to the little things you do a lot because if you improve a very little thing that happens every game, it's very good. If you fuck up one outplay, you mess up one team fight, and like you spend 10 minutes like reviewing that team fight and making sure that's what you should be doing better. Like no, that's not going to happen like every game. But if you look at like how you play like your first, second, third waves and like understand how you drop your wards according to what champions they're playing and you make tiny adjustments based on that, that happens every game. Like the first like 4 or 5 minutes of every game, you can like plan out and review and like be pretty critical on yourself because even when I was like, you know, felt like I was playing my best, I was still making pretty big errors in that regard. So looking at the things that you do a lot and making small improvements at that leads to huge improvements as a player. It's one of the big lessons I've learned from becoming a jungler. And one thing that I think is super relevant to what everyone can take from no matter what elo is pay attention in the draft because a lot of the times I'll pick a champion in a draft and the game will dodge and I'll be like in the headspace of that champion and I'll just insta pick it next draft almost no matter what. Just like try and take. I know it's hard, but I guess it's not so much of a problem because there's not as many dodges in low elo, but there's hella dodges in high elo. So people get fixated on a champion. If you see someone pick a champion, if you ban it, one, they're tilted. Two, if you don't ban it, they're probably gonna pick it anyways. So you know what they're gonna pick, and you can kind of just abuse this to get like little advantages in the draft. So I think the reset in between drafts is very important because you'll tend to pick things that aren't good and just like throw OP for yourself. Um, Outside of that, I think one of the big things that I've like constantly fallen over is I would just get kind of upset if the game wasn't going how I expected it to go based on what had happened previously in the game. If I, like if I win a mid 2v2 versus the jungler and their jungler's just screwed, he has no way back into the game, but then he just gets like 3 cheese ganks off bot, my mental will just be, it's just done for me. Like, I need to get better at communicating how the enemy team can win and trying to get my teammates to play around that because I know as like a player how they're going to win the game or how they're going to get back in the game, but I like wasn't taking the liberty to communicate that to my teammates and making sure that like, say we're like hard smurfing on their bot lane. I've gone mid twice, we've walked bot twice, we're about to take their tower. The only way they can win is like through our top lane. So it's like a little message like we're smurfing bot side, you just have to not die, like to your GP or something or whatever. Whatever the example is. Like there are a lot of little things you can do to help guide your team to the victory when like the GP might be thinking, "Oh dude, we're winning so hard. Why can't I play up?" Like you can just help push your team towards victory and little things like that. But like try not to come off as a dick, but kind of like guiding your team to how you want the game to be played is very important to actually, being able to learn. And if you fuck up and if you make like a bad decision and your team follows it up and shit goes wrong, like take the blame, but don't let people like walk over you and call you trash. You just say, "Yeah, my bad," and then just like if people keep going off, just cut it there, no more. Um, but yeah, I think that it's really important to be able to guide the game because if random shit just happens, like you're doing your best, but the game is just a mess, there's not much to learn from. The only thing you can learn from is like how to not like descend into that snowball of madness. So, but that's not even that useful, especially when you're a competitive player. The snowball of madness does pop up, but like it's pretty easy to stop a lot of the time. And I've never really like had like this the snowball into death happen on stage many times. It's usually just a scrim thing where people don't care so much, but as soon as they're actually like try harding, it doesn't occur so much. But yeah, it's felt like I have so much perspective on myself as a player and what it takes to be like good at the game of League of Legends now. It feels like yeah, my view is just a lot more, yeah, I guess you could say full. Um, I guess I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. I might just be a bad jungler, who knows? I'm not that high elo. I only just got to challenger. Like, I'm not the greatest, but it's been fun so far. One of the main things is it's been really fun. Like, I enjoy the jungle role. You have so much to do at any times. You're so active in every play, and if you're playing well, you feel like you have so much control and so much agency over the game. Of course, jungle can also feel like the least agency role when all three of your lanes just lose. But like, yeah, there's so much importance in the game being fun. If you don't enjoy the game, if you're just like grinding out the game, it's not good for your health. It's not good for your brain. You're never gonna take the right steps to make sure that you're the best player you can be, and you're enjoying yourself as much as you can, and like you're living your life to your fullest. So I think yeah, one of the important things it's done is it's like it's made the game a lot more fun for me, and I'm doing what I want to be doing rather than what I was good at. which is like kind of, yeah, it's a pretty big step for me. And hopefully I get to compete as a jungler. I would like really like the opportunity to show like how good I can be and to improve in this role. It's super fun, and yeah, I hope you guys learned something from this video. And even if you didn't, I hope you enjoyed listening to me. If you have any stuff like questions about the game or anything, you can shoot me a DM on Twitter. It's up there, I think. Yeah, and just yeah, anything like that. I love talking about the game. Any topics you guys are interested in, just let me know. Peace.